Hi, friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad that you're joining me today. My name is Marla with Mad About Cards and Crafts. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I also have a blog. All of them are linked in the description box below. Today we're using the A7 Fall Tree Pop-Up from Scrappy Tails Crafts. This is a new die. As you can see, it is a pop-up mechanism. It has all of the pieces that you need to create a beautiful fall pop-up. There are a lot of different pieces to this. So we have a fence, we have the tree background. I'm going to pull it out of the packaging, and you can see that there is a strip that you can use for the pumpkins. It gives it a little bit of sturdiness and flow. I am going to link a video that was presented over on the Scrappy Tails Crafts channel, which shows how you can use it in the pop-up form. For today, I am going to be using it on an A2 card. I'm creating a wedding card. I have a wedding to go to next week, and this was the perfect fall themed card that I could create for the wedding. I'm going to do a little bit of ink smushing, so I'm starting with some crackling campfire and a little bit of rusty hinge. I have some accent opaque white cardstock. I spritzed it with a little bit of water. I spritzed my ink with water. I use my finger to break up that ink so that I don't get any harsh lines from the square pad. And I do a tapping motion, as you can see. Adding these three colors are going to give me a really soft and beautiful fall vibe. I like to use my Ranger heat tool to dry my panel in between. And then just to fill in some of that white space, I'm using some fossilized amber, giving a little bit of yellow to the background. The Ranger heat tool does have a more dispersed air that goes through it. And so, unlike the embossing gun, which is going to really bring some high concentrated heat to melt embossing powder, this one is a little bit more forgiving on your card panel when you're doing the drying. I'm going to do some splattering or spattering, whichever word you prefer to use for this technique, using that lumberjack plaid. And I also add a little bit, I think at the beginning I added a little bit of water to that as well. This is just going to add a little bit more texture. When I do my die cutting, it's not as noticeable, but it really does add a lot to the colored pieces. So I'm going to do my die cutting off camera. This is going to be the center of my sunflowers. The last panel was going to be for the sunflowers themselves. I started with gathered twigs, and then I added that really almost black brown, which is the beautiful scorched timber. Love that color, especially for fall. I'm doing a little more smushing with vintage photo. I'm going to add my blending brush and the ink to the background. So I'm going to have a little bit of softness from the blending brush, but I'm still going to have the texture from the smushing or tapping that I did, adding that ink to the background. I just wanted the whole panel to be a little bit darker than I was getting with the smushing, and adding that little bit of vintage photo just made it a little bit quicker for me. I did end up doing my green stems off camera. I thought that I had pressed record, but apparently I didn't. And so for the stems, I did go with some rustic wilderness, and then I added in some forest moss and a little bit of peeled paint. I did the same thing with the water texture and a little bit of the spattering. And then here, I wanted my pumpkins to be kind of like that creamy green. And I'm starting with antique linen, and then I'm going to move on to old paper. And old paper has a really nice green tint to it. Now, I do lean towards distress inks. I just like the vibrancy of the colors, but with the smushing technique, it's going to give it a little bit of softness, because adding that water to the ink is really going to lighten it up just a little bit. I did my die cutting of my pumpkins. I cut about 8 of them. I think there's 4 different sizes of pumpkins. I cut 2 each, and then I'm just going to use my wet glue. I'm gonna start with this jewel picker. I don't like the way it's picking things up, so I do move on to my reverse tweezers. It just was a little bit easier than this particular picker that I had, and so I'll use that to add my stems. I cut my stems from the same cardstock that I created my leaves for my sunflowers from, and that is going to be the rustic wilderness and the forest moss. So again, I am going to a wedding in Colorado. I'm going to be using a die cut that was from the Paris release at Scrappy Tail Crafts a couple years ago. I love this image. It is the perfect size and it's so beautiful to paper piece because you can change their little outfits, the patterns to fit the season. And so I went ahead and pulled out the umbrella couple layering, and I thought that this was going to fit the mood. We are going to be back up where I used to live in the Rocky Mountains for this wedding. I haven't been back since 2018, so I'm super excited. I'm hoping that all of the leaves haven't fallen off the trees because it's always so beautiful with the leaves changing up there. And so I thought that having this fall layered card was really going to fit the theme of the wedding. Here's our sunflowers. There are 3 different sizes of sunflowers. And as you can see, there is the base layer, and then you add the sunflower, and then you add the center. They're super easy to align when you look at the die cut pieces. The edges of the sunflowers are just really easy to figure out where they align. I'm going to only use 5 of the pumpkins and 5 of the sunflowers. I think I cut 6 sunflowers, and so, I have a couple left over that I can use on another project, but I'm one person that really likes odd numbers as much as possible, and so I don't like everything to be totally matchy-matchy, and so I ended up putting 2 and 2, on one side, the left side of my card, and then 3 and 3 on the right side. So 2 sunflowers and 2 pumpkins, 3 sunflowers, 3 pumpkins. This fall release is a smaller release. There are, I believe, 3 different die sets, but the die sets are very large and they also coordinate with some of the other interactive Scrappy Tail Craft products. It's one of the things that they do over at Scrappy Tail Crafts is that they create these beautiful pop-ups and interactive card designs, and then they create lots of different die cuts or die packages that can go with those interactive card pieces. I tend to be more of an A2 card maker, and so I love to show how they can actually be utilized, these beautiful pieces, when you're not an interactive card maker. So here we have an A2 top folding card base, and I am going to use my wet glue to add this background. I did cut it twice from white cardstock. This again is the Accent Opaque 100-pound cardstock. And I'm going to use my wet glue to glue it onto my background. My card panel is going to be, I believe it's 120-pound Accent Opaque cardstock. I like the extra dimension from layering up that background twice. I'll use my Tim Holtz scissors to trim it down, and then we'll start building our fall pieces. I thought that having the white on white would add a little bit of elegance to the wedding card. And again, because I used water to soften up my ink colors, I think that these fall colors are just really beautiful. They're so soft, and I think that they just fit the theme perfectly. Now, here is that umbrella couple. I did use some cardstock, some pattern paper, I mean, from my stash to paper piece. I'm going to show you how easy it is. So there's the paper piecing, and then there's the solid piece. So you just do all the die cutting, and then it's kind of like a puzzle. You just fill in the solid couple. So easy peasy. I used a leaf pattern paper for the dress, a plaid for the jacket, some polka dots from an Scrappy Tail Crafts paper pad that I had, and I think that the colors really work well with my sunflowers and my pumpkins. I'm just going to use the wet glue to layer up my sunflowers. This first one, I just needed to use the reverse tweezers to hold it down a little bit. It didn't want to stick because I do have that little bit of dimension from the tree die cut arch. I'm adding my sunflowers at different levels. Now, the stems, the bottom of the stems are going to be covered up by the pumpkins, so this makes it really easy for me to do to just change the height of those sunflowers. And then I will use a little bit of foam tape so you can see those tiny foam squares that I have right there. I'm going to add them to the back of the largest pumpkin on the left-hand side, and then I'll place that on the far left of my arch, and then I'll use one of the smaller pumpkins to tuck in behind it. And then to switch it up just a little bit, I'm using the largest pumpkin. I'll put it in the middle of my cluster on the right side. I'll use one of the smaller pumpkins, again with the glue on the right, and then I'll use the foam dots to pop up the final third pumpkin that's going to be on the left-hand side of the cluster. And then that's going to finish up my card. Now I will show you a close-up of the card. I did want to let you know that I did use a sentiment from my stash for the inside of the card. It says, "Wishing you all the best as you begin your life together. May you be blessed with years of health, happiness, love that lasts a lifetime." And I think that they are going to love this card. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments section. I love when you hit that like button. It really does help get my videos out there. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Happy fall. Enjoy the season. See you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.